You didn't ask for this. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to dismantle everything that made you feel stable. And yet, here you are, standing in the threshold between the life you've known and the life you can't yet name. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It doesn't begin with a single decision. It begins with a feeling so subtle you almost dismiss it. A heaviness in your chest when you walk into spaces you once called home. A hollow ringing behind your eyes when you try to care about the old ambitions. A quiet refusal to keep performing the same identity, even when it still fits your schedule perfectly. This is how the unraveling starts, not as a crisis, but as an ache. A soft, inexplicable ache that says, something here is no longer true. You try to negotiate with it. You tell yourself it's a phase, a mood, a reaction to too much stress. You remind yourself how much you've invested in this version of life. How many years you spent building this scaffolding of certainty, achievement, belonging. But the ache doesn't care, doesn't argue. It doesn't need proof. It just keeps humming under the noise, whispering a truth you can't unhear. You're outgrowing this. And it's terrifying because the mind wants to believe that outgrowing something means it was wrong. That if you're no longer able to pretend, it means you failed. That if you don't feel aligned anymore, you must have done something to break the connection. But what if this isn't a punishment? What if this is what alignment actually feels like? Not a rush of clarity or a burst of motivation, but the steady dissolving of everything that can't come with you. What if you're not losing yourself? What if you're finally losing the need to stay somewhere your energy has already left? This is the threshold few are willing to cross, because it requires you to trust a frequency you can't yet see evidence of. It asks you to stand in the hollow space between stories, to let your nervous system detox from the performance, to let your mind unlearn the compulsion to fix what isn't broken. You are not broken. You're just done. Done carrying the weight of an identity that never felt like home. Done proving your worth by holding everything together. Done pretending you don't feel the friction that has been slowly burning through your reserves. And yes, you'll want to run. You'll want to grab the nearest certainty and stitch it over this rawness. You'll want to tell yourself a comforting story about why you can't possibly leave what you've outgrown. But that story will feel hollow in your mouth because your body already knows the truth. This isn't an ending, it's an opening. And no matter how convincing the old world sounds when it begs you to stay, you have already begun to outgrow your own disguise. This is the season of thresholds, the place where nothing feels familiar, but everything feels inevitable. You will try to pretend you didn't notice it. You'll go through your rituals, your checklists, your plans. You'll answer emails, fold laundry, meet deadlines, all while something deeper keeps tapping on the inside of your ribcage, asking, who are you performing for? It's a question that won't be silenced by productivity. It doesn't dissolve when you tick off accomplishments. It waits patiently until you're too tired to keep up the disguise. Until you have no choice but to turn toward the ache and finally listen. The world won't understand this. It's too quiet, too unspectacular. No one throws a party when you realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. No one sends you flowers when you say out loud that you can't keep living in a story you've already outgrown. And that's what makes this season feel so lonely. You're not just walking away from circumstances. You're walking away from the version of you who could tolerate them. The one who knew how to keep the peace by abandoning your own truth. The one who knew how to keep working even when your spirit was bone tired. The one who could make 1,000 compromises without ever calling it self-betrayal. You can feel it, can't you? That version of you is dissolving, and no matter how much you try to resurrect her with old habits, she won't come back. This is the grief no one warns you about. The quiet heartbreak of saying goodbye to the self who survived. The one who got you here. The one who kept you safe. It's okay to love that version of you. It's okay to thank them for their service. But you cannot keep living inside their architecture. Because what sustained you then will suffocate you now. And so you stand here, in this silent clearing between identities, half terrified, half relieved, trying to remember how to breathe without the scaffolding of your old performances. If you listen closely, you'll hear something else under the fear, a softer frequency, like a pulse you haven't felt in years. The real you, humming beneath the static, not the version of you who is palatable, not the version who is impressive, not the version who is easy to love, but the one who is honest, the one who is alive. And the question is no longer whether you will stay in the old life. It's whether you are willing to meet the self who's been waiting for you beneath all the roles you thought you had to play. This is the invitation now, to let the old resonance collapse, to let the disguise decay, to trust that you don't need a script to belong, because the you that is rising doesn't require validation to feel real. It only requires your presence. You're not imagining it. The fatigue that doesn't match the effort, the disinterest in the things that used to matter, the sense that you're floating outside your own life, watching it all happen as if someone else is living it. It isn't depression, though it might mimic the symptoms. It isn't laziness, though it might look like inertia. It's an energetic detachment, a gentle but absolute refusal to participate in anything that feels out of resonance. Your body is wise. It knows when a chapter has ended, even if your mind is still bargaining with the plot. It knows when the architecture of your identity can no longer support your becoming. And so it withdraws your energy, slowly at first. A quiet disinterest here, an unexplainable exhaustion there, until one day you realize you can't make yourself care about the things you used to build your life upon. That's the moment you discover the hidden cost of surviving in a frequency that never truly fit you. The depletion, the numbness, the chronic fatigue of holding up an identity that was always too small. And though your mind will try to fix it with better habits, stricter schedules, a new set of goals, nothing will ignite the spark you've lost. Because the spark was never in the performance. It was in the truth. And the truth is this: you don't have the energy to pretend anymore. You don't have the energy to shrink yourself into roles you've outgrown. You don't have the energy to decorate a life built on avoiding your own becoming. It isn't a failure. It's a threshold, a place where you finally get honest about what your soul is no longer willing to carry. A place where you stop measuring your worth by how well you can hold it all together. And though this honesty will cost you relationships that depended on your compliance, cost you identities that made you feel important, cost you illusions that kept you safe, it will give you something far more precious: yourself. The you who doesn't perform. The you who doesn't negotiate your instincts away. The you who knows that stillness isn't the absence of life, but the birthplace of it. This is why the fatigue feels so total, because you are standing at the end of a performance that sustained you for so long, and there is no script left to read. Let yourself rest in this emptiness. Let yourself grieve the version of you who believed your value was in your usefulness. Let yourself trust the quiet clarity that can only arise when you stop trying to resurrect what your energy has already left behind. Because beneath the exhaustion is a deeper vitality, one that doesn't come from doing, but from being. The hardest part of this passage isn't the letting go, it's the waiting. The space between who you were and who you haven't quite become. The days when nothing feels stable, when your identity feels like a sweater unraveling thread by thread, when you reach for familiar thoughts, familiar motivations, and find only emptiness. This is the void, the sacred pause between frequencies. The place where your old reality dissolves, but your new reality hasn't yet taken form. Most people won't understand this season. They'll see your stillness as stagnation, your surrender as weakness. They'll project urgency onto your process, telling you to move faster, to get it together, to return to the version of you that made sense to them. But you know something they don't. Life doesn't transform through force. It transforms through coherence. And coherence can only arise when you stop grasping at illusions you've already outgrown. So you stay here, even when every part of you wants to escape. You stay here, even when your mind screams for a plan, a fix, a guarantee. Because some truths don't arrive through understanding. They arrive through surrender. And this is where the deeper work begins, not in doing, but in undoing. Not in becoming more, but in allowing yourself to be less certain, less defined, less committed to the roles you thought you had to play. It feels like loss, but it's actually a restoration. A return to the self you abandoned to survive. A reunion with the frequency you forgot in your rush to belong. And when the ache gets too loud, when the emptiness feels unbearable, when you catch yourself doubting the entire process, pause, breathe. Remember this: you are not here to rebuild the prison you finally escaped. You are here to discover who you are without the scaffolding. And that discovery cannot be rushed. It cannot be strategized. It cannot be forced to arrive on a timeline that makes your mind comfortable. You have been taught that healing means progress, that awakening means productivity, that transformation means constant motion. But here's the truth: real transformation happens in the stillness, in the silence, in the moments when you let everything fall apart and trust that what is real will remain. Because what is real doesn't need effort to exist, it only needs space. So let it be empty, let it be quiet, let it be unknown. This is not your ending. This is the clearing, the sacred in between where your old self dissolves so your true self can finally be felt. There is no manual for this place, no checklist to measure your progress, no milestones to reassure you that you're getting it right. This is the wilderness between identities, a terrain where your instincts are your only compass. And though it feels disorienting, it's also where the most honest part of you begins to emerge. You may notice that even your thoughts have become quieter. The constant mental noise that once kept you tethered to the familiar has thinned out, revealing a deeper awareness beneath the chatter. You might catch yourself standing in the middle of a task, forgetting why you started it, or staring at your own reflection, wondering when you stopped recognizing the person looking back. This is what happens when the field shifts faster than the mind can process. The energy that sustained your old roles is dissolving, and with it goes your attachment to who you believed you had to be. It's tempting to label this disorientation as failure, to diagnose it as depression, to pathologize it as dysfunction. But what if it's none of those things? What if this is what alignment feels like in the beginning? Like losing interest in the distortions that once defined you? Like grieving the identities that once made you feel safe? Like realizing you don't have to carry what was never yours to begin with? And yes, it feels like you're disappearing. Like the scaffolding that held your reality is collapsing in slow motion. Because it is. But here's the paradox: in the very same moment that everything false falls away, the truest parts of you start to glow. The quiet knowing that doesn't need validation, the raw presence that doesn't require a script, the deeper intelligence that doesn't depend on performance. This is why your old motivations feel hollow. They were built to sustain a version of you that was never meant to last. So let them fade, let them crumble. Let the emptiness swallow the illusions you clung to for certainty. Because in that emptiness, something extraordinary is happening. Your nervous system is learning how to hold your original frequency, the one you were born with before the world taught you who to be. It won't happen overnight, and it won't always feel graceful. But one day you'll wake up and realize you're not tired anymore. You're not lost. You're simply done pretending. And that is the moment when the real life begins. Not the life you were handed, but the life you chose. Maybe you're already feeling it. The subtle but undeniable shift beneath your skin. The sense that no matter how hard you try to revive your old habits, they no longer respond to your touch. You used to be able to force yourself to care, to hustle, to perform, to stay small in the name of stability. But now, even if you wanted to, your energy simply refuses to comply. This isn't laziness. This isn't self-sabotage. This is the recalibration of your entire field. A field that no longer consents to distortion. A field that refuses to lend life force to outdated versions of you. And it's unsettling, isn't it? To feel your old ambitions losing their hold. To witness your goals dissolving into questions. To watch the scaffolding of your identity fall away, revealing an unfiltered truth that doesn't fit the old scripts. But consider this. What if this isn't the end of your purpose, but the beginning of something purer? What if this unraveling isn't a crisis, but an invitation to live from resonance instead of survival? This is the threshold most people will never cross, because it asks more than action. It asks for a surrender so complete that it feels like annihilation to the mind addicted to control. It requires you to stop performing healing and start embodying wholeness, to stop rehearsing clarity and start trusting the intelligence of your own unfolding. This is the quiet revolution, the one no one sees, where you stop outsourcing your knowing, stop borrowing other people's timelines, stop trading your truth for belonging, where you stand in the echoing emptiness and say, I will no longer abandon myself to be acceptable. And from that declaration, a new life begins to coalesce, one built not on borrowed definitions, but on the frequency that has always been yours. One that doesn't require constant proving, constant striving, constant depletion. Because when you finally exit the performance, you realize what you were chasing was never outside of you. It was waiting in the stillness, beneath the noise, beyond the roles, in the place you forgot to look, here. So breathe. Let it all fall away. Not because you're giving up, but because you're finally giving in to the gravity of your own authenticity. If this resonates, let it anchor, not as another concept to collect, but as a felt remembrance in your cells. And when you're ready, speak it, write it, share it, not for validation, but for vibration, so that others can recognize themselves in the truth you've reclaimed. Because this isn't just about you, it never was. Every time you return to your real frequency, you clear the path for the collective to do the same. And that, more than any achievement or performance, is what changes reality itself.